Good afternoon, Michael Malice here, and let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a very special guest, Dave Smith, 1/3 of the Legion of Skanks, host of Part of the Problem.
You're gonna have to mute that, I think.
Oh, this is the laptop. Okay, I thought. Okay, God help. Okay. God forbid. God forbid. Okay, so let's get onto Festivus, the airing of grievances. So we are here in Studio B like animals.
Yes.
Like filthy animals. You have a kid, so your babysitter canceled. That's fine. Last minute. But, and I wouldn't normally mind being here in Studio B where animals belong because we're like animals. But do you know who's in Studio A? Two filthy Irishmen.
Yeah.
Doing Irish goodbye.
We're lower than the Irish.
We're lower than the Irish.
Which, according to Darwin, I'm pretty sure was apes.
According to like the Klan, I don't think we're worse than the Irish.
Yeah, even they would be
they're like, all right, come on.
All right, I'll sit with the Jew.
Sure, they're evil, but at least they're technically human. So I'm pretty triggered that Sweeney and Cannon are over there.
Sweeney.
Isn't it Mike Sweeney?
It's Feeney.
Oh.
But Sweeney is funny.
Who's Mike Sweeney? Isn't that somebody?
Yeah, probably. It does sound familiar.
So what I want to talk to you about, I was having an imaginary conversation with you on the way here.
Oh,
so
I was probably wittier in that conversation than I will be in this one.
That's not saying much. We have a lot of interest in common, but you are a lot more interested in like Libertarian Party politics than I am.
Yeah.
And like I always get pitched, I'm sure, the same guest as you, and I don't care about these people, and I'm curious why you do.
Why I care about libertarian politics?
Yeah, specifically the party. I don't mean like libertarianism as an ideology.
So, the reason I care about the party is because I care about libertarianism as an ideology. That's all I care about is libertarianism as an ideology. And I'm not somebody who believes at all in political solutions in terms of governmental solutions. Maybe I should be more specific.
Well, that would be a solution to the Irish problem.
Well, I mean, that problem might need a state-run solution.
Yeah.
But like, I don't believe that getting good people elected or that we're going to cut the size of government somehow that way. And personally, I think that like even if like say Ron Paul, who was the best libertarian in politics in my lifetime, certainly, even if he were to get elected, I mean, I don't know what could we extrapolate from the Trump experience to imagine what that might look like. Right. I mean, the entire powers of the CIA, the NSA, the mainstream media, Hollywood, they would all be turned against. I mean, if you think they're turned against Donald Trump, someone who really threatened the whole system the way Ron Paul does, I mean, I think quite possibly they would just kill him. I mean, I think they might just go the Kennedy route. So I don't believe in that. However, I do think that Ron Paul was able to spread the message of liberty more effectively than anyone utilizing the political process.
Sure.
So I think that is very valuable. And I've noticed, and maybe this is the difference between me and you, because I was somebody who really came from the Ron Paul movement, and I've really noticed since Ron Paul left politics that the liberty movement has really taken a hit. Far less people are talking about our views. It's not inserted in the mainstream in the same way. And so I think that the Libertarian Party had a real opportunity in 2016 that they absolutely blew by nominating Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. So that's what I care about, that I think it could be a very useful platform to spread the ideas to a lot more people like me who are out there who just haven't heard of them before.
But the two examples you just gave demonstrate the opposite, because Ron Paul ran for president as a libertarian in '88, I believe, but he ran twice as a Republican. Trump, who you also mentioned as a threat to the establishment, basically was a third-party candidate who seized the Republican nomination. He had no Republican credentials whatsoever. So for me, there's no reason why maybe not him specifically, Gary Johnson, why not take this huge infrastructure, and it's two birds with one stone. You're taking away from some really horrible people, and now you've got the whole car built for you, and you're one step closer to actually getting to office.
Right. So I pretty much agreed with that. And it was as simple as they used to ask Ron Paul why he wasn't running third party in like 2008, because they'd be like, you're not really a Republican, you're a Libertarian, so
Right.
why are you running on that? And he would go, well, all the rules are set up against third parties, and so why not just run as a Republican? And,
or Democrat.
And you could find he could find a rationale for that, right? Like you could say, well, the Republicans claim to believe in small government, and the platform used to say this, and I'm really just a constitutionalist or whatever. So I pretty much just agreed with that. And then I was really hoping Rand Paul's campaign would do something. I was optimistic that he would carry the torch, and he didn't, and it was a disaster. And that around the time that Rand Paul's campaign crashed and burned was around the time that I started getting interested in maybe there is something to this Libertarian Party. And the reason was that you had two candidates first off, Donald Trump won the Civil War. He took over the Republican Party by force, not literally, but pretty much forced their hand, democratically forced their hand. And now you had the two most hated political figures in modern American history, like according to the polls, the highest negatives that any two presidential candidates had in Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And then you had a third party that had ballot access at all 50 states, that had the name Libertarian in it, and this was going to be positioned as the alternative. You have these two things who pretty much everybody acknowledges are corrupt liars, and something called Libertarian. And it kind of dawned on me, I went, man, there's a pretty big opportunity there for someone who would actually be a real good libertarian to at least have a platform. I saw the Libertarian Party leaders getting opportunities that I wish Ron Paul had.
Yeah.
All the Ron Paul guys would have killed for an hour-long CNN town hall with just Ron Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have done, people actually watched CNN in 2008. Now just converting people at airports, but still, that it would have been an unbelievable opportunity. And to watch what they did with that was very frustrating. And then I didn't join the Libertarian Party at that point, but then it was like Michael Heiss and the Mises Caucus guys who were like real hardcore, Misesian, Rothbardian libertarians who got in there and were like, we're trying to take over the party. And so I was like, okay, sure, I'll join and hope, give you guys a little bit of help if I can. So it's not like I don't have some lofty goal that this is going to change the country, but I just think, to me, Donald Trump is too bad on too many issues for me to see that as a positive, and I'd like to at least somebody to be inserting the issues that he's dropped, like actually ending wars, actually cutting spending, anything, moving in the right direction.
Well, I think that the biggest mechanism to ending wars, and kind of like the beginning of your show with the theme song, right? It's all about, the war machine and all that, is there's no way we're going to get to all these wars without the corporate press. Like, if you just had the politicians being in Washington being like, we want war, and the press was even 80-20.
Yeah.
Right? Like 80% war, and 20% were like, guys, this is bullshit. It wouldn't happen. And it would be like, wait a minute, because war isn't like marginal tax cuts or like, okay, we're going to have vouchers or it's like your children will die.
Yeah.
For people you can't find on a map. So that's a big effing ask, and it takes a lot of propaganda. I'm not even using the word in the negative sense, just a lot of agitation from the media to make that happen.
Well, you're using it in the literal sense, but it also is in the negative sense. But there's a real silver lining there if you see how much propaganda it takes to sell a war, and there's a positive to be extrapolated from that, which is that, like, oh, okay, so people weren't ready to go fight these wars. It's not like 17-year-olds here, or rather parents of 17-year-olds here were like, let's send our kid to go murder some Iraqis. Like, why? Some conscripted 17-year-old Iraqi now you have to fight against? It's madness.
But this is what when you're like, I agree when it comes to his different issues, like it's garbage. The budget's garbage. It's terrible. Mm-hmm. But if you and I both agree, which I know we do, that the biggest, I'm much more worried about murder than theft, right? It isn't even hard. Like, if you're asking me between World War II and 90% marginal tax rates, this isn't hard.
Sure.
So for having him undermine the war machine, I think that is so much more important than having some libertarian in the mix who's not going to get his voice heard.
Well, there's look, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think there's positives certainly the best thing that Donald Trump has done, from my perspective, has been to undermine the entire establishment.
Yes,
this is by far the best thing, and this is I don't. It's
and
nothing
it's irrevocable.
Yes, there's nothing to sneeze at there. This is something huge. I mean, we're not going to know for another decade exactly what the effect of all of this was, but I think it's huge. I don't think we're just going back to normal after Donald Trump.
They don't get that.
No, they don't. They don't. It's really been amazing because people like me and you have been anti-corporate press for a long time.
Yeah.
But it is different than it's ever been before.
Yes.
You actually see the wheels coming loose. Like they don't know how. There's something about where they have this inability to adapt to the circumstances right now, so they can't deal with what's happening.
Right.
And it's really amazing, just fun and incredible and interesting to watch. So I agree, but what are we really talking about? Like, what are we getting at the heart? Why is it important to undermine the mainstream media? It's well because they're selling people on a bunch of lies, and really, really dangerous lies.
Yes.
And so you want to undermine the mechanism, and ultimately what you want to do is get people to not believe those lies anymore. So you want to spread truth, undermine the people who convince people of lies. So I see this as all being the same thing. To me, I think if you could convince a lot more people of the ideas of liberty, the nature of the state, all of these things. That's what the real goal is. So I think both of those things are great. Undermining the press is great. I'm not looking. It's not either or. I guess my point would be that I agree with you, but I think it's somewhat of a false choice. I don't think we're choosing between the Libertarian Party guy winning and then Donald Trump isn't undermining the media anymore. The Libertarian Party is not going to win. They're not going to win anything. But they certainly could put up, say, a Ron Paul candidate and change a million people's minds.
No, they can't.
Well, theoretically, they could.
Well, theoretically, the Republicans can cut the budget.
Okay, yes, I guess. But yeah, well, theoretically, they could.
Yeah. Who they're thinking of running?
Bill Weld?
No, he left their Libertarians.
Yeah, he's
too good
running
for
as
them.
Republican.
So they can't even get Bill Weld. Do you know who they're going to run?
Justin Amash has been talked about. Who are you thinking?
You don't know?
I may have heard this.
Come on. Who isn't even as good as Bill Weld?
Jeb?
No. Lincoln Chafee.
Oh yeah. I did hear about that. Yeah, that would be a nightmare.
Lincoln Chafee. They're thinking of running.
Yeah, no, I'm not defending the state of the Libertarian Party
establishment. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying I don't understand the interest. Because for me, I think this is like a Kurt Schlichter line, or maybe he just says it a lot. Like, this is Reagan. Like, here's my position. I win, you lose. Like, that's where I'm going with this. And I think that I'm just on a personal level. Maybe this is my Ayn Rand side talking. Mm-hmm. I am so, and maybe I'm going to sound like Trump, but I mean it. I'm so put off by losers. And like, Lincoln Chafee is a loser. He failed as a Republican, failed as an independent, ran as a Democrat for president, couldn't even get as good as Martin O'Malley. Like, to be talking to this person on any level.
Well, yes, I'm not interested in talking to Lincoln Chafee, but I don't consider Ron Paul a loser at all.
He's not a loser.
Even though he lost his presidential
but
bids.
He's had enormous... Right, but what I'm saying is, talking about the Libertarian Party now.
Right.
Like, if Lincoln Chafee is one of your big names... That's
a problem. It's a real problem. I agree with you on that.
Like, I don't. One of the things when I first got involved in, I guess, anti-politics, is I was very concerned. I remember in high school, like in New York, you had these like Communist Party meetings, right? Mm-hmm. And it would be all these old people with these pamphlets and these books about some rando who like led a strike in the 1920s. And it was like these people had no accomplishments, changed nothing, and they're just this big circle jerk. And it was also, there's a huge social cost if this is your social circle, like this is who you're talking to. And I think this is I'm not saying you're wrong for like finding this stuff interesting. I just don't get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that I would just want to see, because the political process and having a good libertarian up there changed my life so much. I think there's a big...
But he wasn't a good libertarian. He was a Republican.
Right, but small L libertarian.
Sure.
A good libertarian person.
I'm talking about big L libertarian.
Yeah, but to me it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the party is as long as you're spreading the correct ideas.
But they're not.
No, that's the point.
Okay.
But there is a party, and a lot of them, it's pretty split. It's almost 50-50 about the members of the party who do want a good libertarian up there. Gary Johnson squeaked by into the nomination. I mean, he barely got it.
Gary Johnson is so many orders of magnitude better to me
No, that's
than Bill
right.
Weld
That's
and
right.
Lincoln
And
Chafee.
he even squeaked by.
Yeah.
He's a libertarian. Gary Johnson really, he is a libertarian. He's not a perfect libertarian.
He's clearly a libertarian.
But he's a libertarian, and he just was not built for that role.
Yes.
So that was more his problem. And he was not you have to have a certain alpha quality to you, a certain leadership quality to you if you're trying to be a leader.
You're describing Sarwark.
Yes, right. You have to have that alpha Sarwark quality to you. And he didn't have that. And he picked a terrible vice presidential running mate. But but the fact that he was a much better libertarian than Lincoln Chafee, and he still struggled to get through, kind of indicates to me that Lincoln Chafee is going to have a real tough time getting the nomination.
Well, you can't. Well, this is like 64. You can't Goldwater, right? You can't beat someone with no one.
Right.
So it's going to be Adam Kokesh.
Goldwater in the primary.
Well, the Republicans wanted to stop Goldwater, but
Right,
they didn't
but they
have
had no
anyone.
one. They had
So it's
Rockefeller,
like, yeah,
they
you
had no
can't.
one.
So
Yeah.
it became like, we got to stop this guy. You can't stop someone with no one.
Right.
So I mean, if it's not going to be Lincoln Chafee, I mean, it's good. What you think? It's going to be Kokesh?
No, I doubt that. I don't know. I mean, I think there's still some time for somebody to get in. I've heard a few other names floated out. I don't know. Look, I'll tell you, I'm not super optimistic right now that this is going to work.
Okay.
But I still think it's worth pointing out. And really, all I was doing in that debate and everything like that, all I was doing was pointing out that we should be focused on the idea that we should make this work. And the only thing we should be doing is trying to find a really great libertarian who can convince other people this is the way to go.
So let me tell you guys about Blinkist, which is a great app. You can use it on your phone, your tablet, and your web browser. If you go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/malice, they give you a free 7-day trial and 25% off if you choose to subscribe. What is Blinkist? There's lots of books out there, and other than my two, they're all terrible. You don't want to waste time reading them all. What Blinkist does is it takes these great books and condenses them down to 15 minutes for you to read or listen to. 15 minutes, you get the idea. They've got those crappy books that everyone's talking about at work. Do you really want to sit through Becoming by Michelle Obama? You got a date with the big Obama girl? Fine. Sit down for 15 minutes. Oh, yeah, I liked it in her book, blah, blah. They've got the Michael Wolff books about Trump, but they also got quality books. Tim Ferriss, Dale Carnegie, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Here's one habit. Don't waste time reading a book you don't need when you could just spend 15 minutes on Blinkist. If you go to Blinkist.com/malice, you get 25% off your subscription and free for 7 days. Let's get back to the show. Again, I don't, this is not really that, like, I know a little bit about it, but for osmosis, it's not that much of an interest to me.
Well, let me just say real quick,
okay,
though,
sure.
that there's actually not that much distance in between me and you. I mean, we do disagree a little bit here, but the truth is, if you look at what I do and what I spend my time on, it's a very small percentage of what I spend my time on is Libertarian Party anything. I mean, I pay $25 a year for dues. That's what I kick into
theft.
them. Well, no, I voluntarily.
It's theft.
I voluntarily pay $25 a year, and I've had a couple, people on my podcast who are there, but about 99% of what I do with my podcasts or anything like that is just really taking apart the mainstream media, the corporate press. I still use that term sometimes. You're correct, though.
But
is shitting on the corporate
do you get
press,
my point with that?
spreading ideas, talking about how crazy the whole system is. And because I agree with you on that. I think that's the most valuable use of time.
About calling it corporate instead of mainstream, like my.
Oh yes, no, I think you're right. That's why I correct myself.
Yeah.
I think you're right about that. That is a better way to describe them. And terms matter a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
When Tulsi was referring to Syria as a regime change war.
Oh, I hate it.
What?
I hate it.
What, you hate that she said that?
I hate the term regime change war. I don't agree with you on this.
Okay, please tell me more.
I don't like regime. The whole thing of regime change war, I think, just takes away from war. I think it softens it. It's kind of like collateral damage to me. Like regime change just sounds so like technical and it's mass slaughter. It's mass murder. I don't know.
I think this country is so blue-pilled on this issue that if you start talking, here's the thing: Candace Owens, right? Who were the Ayn Rand of our time. If you go to a black person who's
freeing the slaves,
if you go to a black person who's a doctor or even a fucking secretary or even working at like some fast food joint, and you tell them you're on a plantation, they will not be like, "Tell me more." They're gonna be like, what are you talking about, crazy lady? Right? So I think if you tell the vast majority of people this is mass slaughter or taxation theft, they're gonna be like, "Okay, nice."
Yeah, maybe you're right.
So regime change, to me, is such a stigmatized term because that they've got in their heads like this was a mistake that I think it's a branding thing.
All right, maybe you're right about that.
So you're right. It's a bullshit term, but it's efficacious.
It is particularly with the war in Syria. There is some use. The term is useful because it's good to remind people that that's what this war is all about, because they're so full of shit on it. I mean, I was talking about on my podcast the other day, it's really funny. It's like now that the Kurds have, they're basically being protected by Assad. They figured this whole thing out very quickly. It was the obvious move. We had actually, they had gone.
I got to interrupt. I'm sorry. I just love this idea that like the Meghan McCain's, bless her heart, that like the Kurds are basically don't care and they're just doing this to help us because they're our friends. Like they have no interest in this issue whatsoever.
Oh, or just even more absurd that they care so much about the Kurds. Like the idea that the McCains care so much about some people in the Middle East getting killed, because that's always been their biggest concern, is avoiding that. And no, it's like when ISIS stormed back into Western Iraq after the CIA funded them in Syria, and Obama went into Iraq, the latest Iraq war. And, you have John McCain out there talking about the Yazidis on the mountain. And all of a sudden, like we just had a war that he was on record as saying this could last 100 years. Yeah. I'd be fine with that. Where 1 million Iraqis died, but all of a sudden there's 12 Yazidis on a mountain somewhere, and we're like, well, we can't let this happen. Like really, John McCain, this is your concern. But the Kurds are fine. They made the obvious move. They went and made a deal with Assad. They were going to do that if we hadn't stopped them from doing that for the last 5 years. So they went and made a deal. So the Kurds are fine. Baghdadi's dead. And you go, so what's the new reason why we have to stay now? Because I know you're going to have one. I know SE Cupp and Meghan McCain and all these people aren't going to go, you know what, I guess we can leave Syria now. They're all going to have a new argument. And it's funny because it's like I've been arguing against this war in Syria through 6 different reasons why we need to have the war in Syria. It's like, what about Assad gassing his people? Like that's not even like a thing anymore. They don't even claim that. It's just protecting the Kurds or defeating ISIS or this. But what it's really all about is Iran.
Yeah.
They'll usually tell you that within like 5 sentences.
If
you let Max Boot go on for like 3-4 sentences, then it's like, and also Iranian influence in the region. You're like, there we go. That's why we're in this war, to overthrow Assad, to destabilize Iran.
It's just also bizarre to me that somehow there will be the possibility that there will be a Middle East without Iranian influence.
Right.
Like literally thousands of years, Persia was like the crown jewel. Mm-hmm. When is Iran not going to be a powerhouse to the point where like they're irrelevant? Like literally, I think if the U.S. moved there, you're still going to have Iranian influence.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right. And then on top of that, of course, the thing, if your concern is increasing Iranian influence, well, then you'd have to say that the worst people ever were George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, who overthrew Saddam Hussein.
Who had a war with Iran.
And literally fought a war on behalf of Iran, overthrew their rival in the region, gave the Shiites the government.
Yeah.
Like handed them the keys to Iraq. So now they had Iraq, Syria, and Iran all under Shiite control, which is all influenced by Iran, and none of them reject that war. They all still defend it. And then, the other problem with it is that you go, well, okay, like Iranian influence, you could certainly make an argument it's a problem, or Iran is not a good government, and they're bad people, they're very oppressive. But what's the alternative? And if you look at the Sunni radicals who Iran has been at war with for basically, the last 20 years, they're far scarier, certainly to the West. I mean, you're talking about al-Nusra, ISIS. These are the real threat. Like, they're the only ones threatening the West in any serious way. And Iran is opposed to them. So I'm really not that concerned about, like, the oppressive Shiite governments in the region, when the only problem that we've dealt with is the radical Sunnis.
It's also fascinating sometimes on Twitter when people think everything that they don't like is the same. And like just today, someone's arguing that socialism and communism is the same with me. And I think to myself, you're telling me if you had to sit down and choose between Khrushchev and Pol Pot, like if you're like, oh, I'm just going to flip a coin.
Right.
So it's just like, yeah, Iran is terrible. but they're not. The Iranian atrocities, you could go down the list, blah, blah, blah. It's not at all comparable to this beheading, complete Stone Age degeneracy.
Yeah, that's right. No, ISIS is a whole different threat, and that should be obvious to anyone. And then they're really, I mean, like the neocons particularly, and the war hawks in general, but they really kind of count on people to not know the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite. Like, they know people don't know the difference, so you'll hear Karl Rove on Fox News, and he'll say these things like, Iran is the #1 supporter of terrorism in the world. And that just kind of leads. I mean, he never makes it clear. So it just kind of leaves the average Fox News viewer going, well, Al Qaeda and ISIS, right? I mean, those are the terrorists. But no, he's actually talking about Hezbollah, Hamas, like other organizations, or not even Hamas, Hezbollah, maybe the Houthis, things like that are getting funding from Iran. And that really, I mean, they really don't have any problem with us. Like, they didn't knock down our towers. They didn't. They're not doing anything in Europe. Family. Yeah, exactly. They're not the Jews in the Bush family. They didn't knock down our towers. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, so they kind of count on that, and it's like, and then, again, it's always like by the 4th or 5th sentence, these neocons, like, it's like, well, but they give money to, Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is a threat to Israel's ability to occupy southern Lebanon. You're like, all right, well, I don't really care if Israel can occupy southern Lebanon or not, so why do I care if Iran supports them?
So you mentioned SE Cupp, and I'm going to put my ice skates on and be on thin ice because I don't want to get in trouble. You worked with her.
I worked with her for a long time, for a
long
year.
time. So I've hit her pretty hard on Twitter a couple of times. I mean,
by the way, I said I worked with her for a long time, for a year. That's in comedian time. A year worth of work. You're like, phew, a year. I mean, I don't know who's ever worked with somebody for this long. It was unbelievable. 3 times a week.
I've hit her a few times on Twitter, and she gets ratioed pretty hard, thankfully.
Yeah.
Is she? But she wasn't always like this. So she's almost like the Uncle Tom at CNN. Like, she plays a role, the House N-word. Is she sincere? Like, as far as you can determine, how closely did you work with her?
I pretty closely. I mean, we weren't close. Like, we never hung out off the show. But we'd chat in the green room, and we'd argue a lot, like off camera, because I was the most confrontational with her on the show. And she always struck me as being sincere. I don't think she's full of it. I think SE, and this is just kind of me speculating, but I think SE found herself in a weird situation. She was being groomed to be the next generation of conservative, pundit talking heads, and that was hers. I mean, this is how it always worked, right? Like, the gatekeepers chose her, and she's in. And then the rules all changed,
right?
And particularly on the right. I mean, it's true on the left too, but not like it is on the right. Like, the right is basically like, we don't buy any of this shit anymore. I mean, Fox News still has their viewers, but it's an aging demographic. The younger people aren't coming into Fox News. I mean, even the more mainstream right-wing people are with Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and these other internet kind of things, and they're not looking to some. And so she went with the Republican establishment. She's like a neocon. I mean, she's like a Dick Cheney supporting neocon, and she's like, well, so I'm a never Trumper, and that would be and she kind of bet on that lot winning, and they got trampled. I mean, just it was a civil war in the Republican Party, and it wasn't close. Yeah, they got their village got burned to the ground,
and their
men killed, their women raped. Yes, like
we're gonna watch you rape your wife.
Yes, this is bad. And so now she's in this weird position where, what does she do? She's at CNN. So that she's useful to them in the sense that she's like, look, even Republican SE Cupp, even Republican Ana Navarro agrees that Trump's the worst thing ever. That's their role, is to come on and say, and I'm a lifelong Republican, and I agree with the Democrats on everything. That's their role. But to the Democrats, to the left-leaning people who watch CNN, it's like, oh, okay, but you're a Republican, so what do I care about you? And to the Republicans, you're like, you're a rhino. So she kind of is in this weird place.
And
I feel bad in a way.
Navarro would be a rhino if she lost a few. What
shit.
a brood sow.
She is just
she's
the
worst
fucking
one.
worst. She's the worst. She's far worse than SE Cupp.
Oh,
you
by
see
far.
when she was arguing with Rand Paul and she got offended that he called Maduro a socialist?
I couldn't watch that. I had the clip. I was going to play it on
Because he's not a socialist. He's a brutal dictator. You're like, excuse me?
And she was yelling at him. And I'm like, I think she in terms of like people I can't handle, like there's an expression on the internet called bitch eating crackers, where if you hate someone so much, if they're just like sitting there eating crackers, like, oh, can you believe this bitch? She's sitting there eating crackers. Like, I think she is so smarmy and repellent. And it's such a mix. I don't think her and Max Boot, because Max Boot's a liar.
He's just.
I think a lot of them aren't liars. They understandably think. It's easy to make the anti-Trump case. He is objectively a horrible person. The Republican Party should be the exemplars of morality in a culture.
Yeah.
That's been taken away. Now we're going to be destroyed morally. That is a reasonable argument. That's not the Max Boot argument. Max Boot, when your job is to shit on the Republican Party and any even good conservative things that you argued for 5 years ago, you're a liar and an asshole.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference between him and even a Bill Kristol, in my view.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And SE is...
I don't think she's that.
She's not that. She's not that. She's very...
Anna is.
She's very bad on the issues that she cares about the most. So Syria was like her number one issue. And me and her used to battle about this on the show. And I really enjoyed it. It made for good TV. And it was great for me. Because then I could play the role of being the one taking on the CNN anchor about her number one issue. And just... I mean, it would really pain me sometimes, and I would like give her books. I know she never read any of them, but we would talk afterward, and I would really be like, Essie, okay, but there are like these real problems with your narrative. Like I can disprove what you're saying. So she would say things like, she would go, well, look, nobody in America wants to be at war in Syria. There's no conspiracy of people trying to get us into war in Syria. It's just that Assad is slaughtering his own people. And so we have to go, what would you do? Just sit by and not go, help these people? And I'd be like, okay, Essie, well, here's the problem with this narrative, right? So when did Assad start slaughtering his people? Okay, when do you have this happening? Like 2013, 2014? Okay, so then why can I find in 2003 4-star General Wesley Clark telling me he's seen plans for regime change in Syria and that this is the neocon plan all along? Why is it that already in 2007, 2008, in interviews, Bashar al-Assad's being asked about whether regime change is coming to him next? I mean, why is it that Operation Timber Sycamore starts in 2011, 2012, before he's killing his own people? So you can actually prove that this is not, whether or not you think we should do this now for that reason, that this is not why this started.
It was very known at the time, I'm old enough to remember, and I'm sure you are too, that after Afghanistan, after Iraq, what's next? And the question was, Iraq's going to be done in 2 minutes like Afghanistan, and then we're just going to start picking it off and establish Western-style democracies. This was very known.
Yes, no, this is absolutely what it was, and then even more specifically after that, around 2007, 2008 is when the neocons, this is still under George W. Bush, when they started realizing what they had done, because this whole plan of we'll overthrow Saddam Hussein and then democracy will sweep the region, and Muslims will be in mini skirts and Jeffersonian republics will rise up. It actually turned into right. Oh, I'm sorry, Hamiltonian republics, even better.
We don't want slavery.
So even better, Hamiltonian republics. So they But so obviously what happened was that the Shiites just ended up putting down the Sunnis, and Iran had way more influence in the region. And then they did what they called the redirect, where they were like, well, no, actually now we have to try to control Shiite power. And they started siding with the Sunnis. And then that really made Assad the next target. Like, okay, I mean, they did Gaddafi first, but then they went hard after Assad. But I would say these things to SE, and the impression I got, and I don't know this is just me speculating, but the impression I got was that no matter how many good points I would make to her, there was just kind of this thing that I'm kind of sympathetic with, is that she was just like, yeah, Dave, I hear what you're saying, but I get advice from, these three people, former CIA, like deputy director, assistant to the chief of staff of Dick Cheney, like so-and-so, Max Boot, like all these people who are like real serious foreign policy people. And you're some fucking comic who's telling me that they're all wrong about all of this. So I think I'm going to go with those guys, not you. And I get that. I get where you could feel that. You know what I mean? Like that even, as I say, it kind of makes sense. The problem is just that all of those people are fucking wrong and I'm right. So you should have just listened to me. But that to me was just, SE was like, I think she was not willing to break out of the pack. And I think ultimately that's why she's a never Trumper, because she just stuck with her pack the whole time.
I think what else is interesting is if and I could be wrong because politics is cyclical, and there is a certainly generally a reversion to the mean. But if Trump gets thrown overboard and Trumpism gets defeated, whatever the fuck Trumpism is, it's not like the right wing is going to be looking towards like the heroes of the past and like resuscitating them, right?
No.
It's not going to be like, let's bring back the McCains and Romneys. It's going to be some new third thing. And that new third thing might be even worse. It might be some kind of Mike Pence, like, super zealotry. Who knows? But the point is, it's not like that circle, the Bill Kristol, that they're this kind of shadow government in waiting, and as soon as Trump falls, they're going to reassert the throne. And I think they really believe that they are.
Well, yeah, this is what's really interesting going into 2020.
Maybe they're right.
Well, it's possible, but I doubt it. And if you look at the, like, now that we're really only a couple months out from the year 2020, and you realize that there are two options. This is kind of binary. Like, either Donald Trump is going to get reelected or he's not. Now, maybe he gets impeached. I think that's unlikely. Maybe he gets defeated in the election. I also think that's looking more and more unlikely. But one of those two things are going to happen. And if Donald Trump gets reelected, you're going to see craziness like you've never seen before out of the left in this country. I mean, we've already seen it, but the reelection of Donald Trump, they're going to lose their fucking minds. Like, they cannot handle this. And if he doesn't get reelected, if this goes back to a Democrat one way or the other, the 63 million people who voted for Donald Trump are going to say, and I'm somewhat sympathetic to this, they're going to say, we got our guy in, and you guys completely stole this from him. You were right away investigating him for something he wasn't guilty of. There was impeachment talk before he was even sworn in.
Yes.
Then you moved to this impeachment over something that every president's done that's really not that big of a thing, that you just undermined and undermined. The media was against him the whole time. We wanted this wall. Now, I think it's quite possible that the Democrats, the big bet that the Democrats have, I think is actually going to pay off. It might pay off a lot sooner than we think, which is basically just that demographics are changing. Texas is going to be flipped blue. Republicans will never win another national election. That's quite possibly going to be the case. But it's not as if white Republicans are gone. There's still 63 million of them in the country that voted for Trump, and probably a lot more who are sympathetic to him. That's not small enough to just marginalize without feeling some ramifications of that. And one way or the other, the country, I think, is going, if you think this is polarized, I think it's going to get much, much more polarized.
I had a tweet not that long ago, and I said, given how crazy things are now, what do you think will happen if Trump gets elected? Like, if the dial's already at 11, like, what's 12 look like? And someone replied, and I apologize for not remembering his Twitter handle. I'm assuming it was a guy because it was a smart argument that made sense. That you're going to see active discussion with a straight face of, like, assassination on CNN. And it happened. It's not literally assassination. Bill Weld was on MSN, I think it was MSNBC or CNN, one of them, saying, and it wasn't his words twist. He goes, this is what he said. This is treason, and the penalty for treason includes up to the death penalty. So he didn't say, oh, it's treason. People are like, oh, that means the death penalty. Oh, shit. No. No, he said, in his own words, Trump is up for the death penalty.
And actually, John Brennan.
Your candidate.
That's right, my guy, Bill Weld. Actually, John Brennan said when he after that Helsinki meeting with Putin, he said the president has committed treason. Now he wasn't as explicit as Bill Weld in saying, and he should get the death penalty. But I mean, that is the punishment for treason.
Yeah.
And it actually freaked me out more when John Brennan said that, because that's not just some nobody floating around politics. This was the former head of the CIA saying that the president should be killed.
What's his Twitter handle?
John Brennan?
Yeah. Do you know?
No. At John Brennan?
It's at John O'Brennan. Okay.
Okay.
Head of the Central Intelligence Agency. Who owns JohnO'Brennan.com?
Do you?
I do.
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
if you go to it right now, it forwards to a Trump fundraising page. So these people aren't as smart as you think. Not that you thought they were particularly smart.
No. My claim is not that they're smart. I actually really
love dangerous. Yeah.
Yes, dangerous. I actually really loved Tucker Carlson's line. At one point, someone called him a populist, And he said, I'm not a populist. I'm an elitist. I just believe in impressive elites.
Yeah.
So it's just like a shit. And I really, like, that really resonated with me. Like, I'm absolutely an elitist. I mean, like, I'm an anarchist. I don't believe in the state ruling class, but there's going to be an elite. I mean, I think no question in society. Some people are way smarter, way better than others, will accumulate more wealth, will basically be bosses, while other people live ho-hum lives. You know, like, that's going to be, yes, right, which is going to be the reality. Most people are happy not being fucking bosses, you know? Yeah. But I just don't think you should look around and those people should be Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. Like, if we're going to have elites, can they be somebody who's like, I have friends that are more impressive than these people?
Malice here. I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite sponsors, heshysocks.com. If you go to HESHI socks.com, use promo code WELCOME30, you get 30% off your entire order. They just sent us some new ones. I'm wearing them right now. Gladly and proudly. I turned them inside out. Why? Because they are cushioned. They've got arch support. They call it stay up technology. The point is you hike the socks up, they stay up on your calf. They've got the cool ones for work. They've got the cool ones for play, basic fashion, whatever you want. It's a great way to have a little bit of personality in the office or on a date when you're going to a party with your ugly loser friends. If you go to HESHIsocks.com and use promo code WELCOME30, they're going to give you 30% off. Not too shabby, like those socks you're currently wearing. You're disgusting. Let's get back to the show. Kamala Harris's campaign or publicity manager, one of those terms, press agent, whatever the term is, has fewer Twitter followers than me. And I hit that fucker every day. I said, hey, has she shot a dog out of anger yet at Ian Sams?
I saw that.
And all his fucking mentions are going to be people following me. Fuck you disgusting. Yeah. She is, by far, in my view, the worst of all of them. And it's not even just being a prosecutor. It's because for you to, you did a lot of awful things you could say about Joe Biden, clearly. For you to go on that debate stage and be like, oh, you're just a closet racist. It's like, he was fighting this shit when it mattered. You shameless.
Oh no,
shameless
for her,
bitch.
For somebody whose career, and that's why that Tulsi moment was just incredible. That just incredible. And I think
this
there's
episode
nothing.
just got demonetized because it's pornographic. Yeah, it was pure porn.
Oh, it was amazing, and there's nothing better from the anarchist perspective. That's one of the best examples that you could ever hit someone with, where it's like, she goes, you put 1,500 people in cages for marijuana and then laughed about it when you admitted that you've smoked marijuana before. That if that does not paint a better picture of the rulers and the ruled, and how this whole thing is actually enforced. And yet this bitch is a fucking aggressive prosecutor. You call anyone out for racism. Right. I mean, like, if not for people like you, racism is just people thinking mean things. That's the only thing that's left in our society that's actually like, no, this is actually what's affecting black people.
No.
Minorities.
What about the Irish and their filth? It's infested our studios.
That's infecting white people. Yeah. That's a problem for good whites.
Disgusting. They should change the name of the show to Irish, comma, goodbye, exclamation point. That's what I want to see. Irish, goodbye. Yeah. Goodbye. See you later. See you later, Irish. You're just part of the problem. That's right. So Tom and I did an episode. Tom Woods. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very failed podcaster. Tom and let's go back to the Nick Sarwark thing. You know, sometimes people white knight for Tom.
Yeah, like I've probably been guilty of
no, but when it's me,
like, not with you.
I'll call him like a very failed podcaster, and they were like, "I'll have you know, blah blah blah," and I'm just like, "What?" Like,
you're literally talking to probably I would guess the most frequent guest on his show
and his good friend. Yeah, but it's
but even if you just know him from the podcast, you would realize that this is a guest on the podcast fairly often.
You'd also know that Tom Woods can hold his own, especially against me. Yeah. He cleaned my clock in the debate. I was like, oh, his show is doing so badly in the Nielsen ratings, it's not even registering. Like, oh my God, blah, blah. But we did an episode on mental health.
Yeah, I listened to it. It was really great.
I want to know, I mean, you're a new dad. Uh-huh. You made it as a comic, part of the Skanks. You got to work with two crazy people. Yeah. And by which I mean Lewis. Because he counts twice.
Lewis is two alter egos.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any techniques on dealing with mental health?
Well, I've definitely I've struggled in the past with like depression and anxiety and things like that. And to me, I really don't know that I have some great insight. The thing that I say, more than anything else, I would say is that I think people, from my experience personally and from the people I've seen before, is that most of the time, people who are struggling with these things are just existing in their own head way too much.
Yes.
And
that's great.
What you need to do is just stop that. It's not about thinking things through the right way. You need to realize what you need to do. You have to be tough with yourself. And you have to realize that you're getting off in some way on this feeling. You wouldn't be feeling this way for this long if there wasn't something about it that you were kind of in some sick way enjoying.
Or at least comfortable.
And yes, but you kind of like, you get in this process where you're like depressed about something, and then you think about it more and it makes you more depressed. And then you do it more and you're kind of getting off. And a lot of times it's feeling sorry for yourself, you know,
Sure.
and then there's something kind of rewarding about that. And what you need to do is just start moving. You need to start with action.
Yes.
And what you can't do is go, and this is a very like the defeatist mentality that a lot of people who struggle with this stuff do. It's like everything's terrible. This is insurmountable.
Right.
It's this terrible thing. And then when you try to get up your energy, you go, I'm going to fix it all tomorrow. And then you inevitably fail at that. And then you go, I fucking failed. I'm a fuck up again. I didn't fix it all. It's like,
It's a
okay,
cycle.
this is a terrible cycle. It's never going to work. What you need to do is pick one thing that is achievable.
Yes.
That is very reasonable, little, and fix that. Go fix that, and then enjoy that, and feel good about fixing that, and then pick one more thing, and then pick one more thing, and make incremental changes. But really, and I remember Jordan Peterson
Great advice.
said, thank you. It worked for me. I think Jordan Peterson said this one. Ish. Well, you know, I mean, within reason.
The rubber can only stretch so much.
Well, Jordan Peterson said this once, and I think this was a really good point. And this is just focusing on the big picture stuff, so you have to go toward it incrementally. But he was just saying, like, there's really like there's only so many things that you have to tick off, like in life, and you don't need to have all of them. But it's kind of like, okay, do you have a job? Do you have friends? Do you have family? Do you have like these very basic human things?
Are you not Irish?
Are you not Irish? You got to get at least like 3 of those 4. Like if you're
Sorry,
Irish, you got to have the other 3.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, what are you even doing
Yeah.
here? But you need to like, if you have none of those things and you're feeling depressed, it's like you don't necessarily have some condition. You are in a situation that any human being would feel depressed in. And, you know, a lot of times I think that I'm not saying it's not true, but I don't like the mentality that it's like, well, it's chemical and it's a disorder, and therefore this is just a condition that I have. Like, it's like when they say alcoholism is a disease or something like that. It's like, yes, it's chemical, but so is everything. That is, our existence is chemical. So when someone says depression is chemical, I'm like, this means nothing. Like, your sentence right now means nothing. Human beings are social animals, and in certain situations, we will all become depressed. We all have the capacity for this. So maybe what you need to think about is, what situation are you putting yourself in? And the truth is, if you're not getting outside, if you're staying up in the night and sleeping during the day, if you're isolating yourself from other people, if you're not getting sun, you're not getting exercise, you're going to be depressed. This is a fact. This is a formula. The same way if you don't eat, you will starve. Like, this is a formula. And so what you need to do is change that formula. And you can do it. Lots of other people have pulled themselves out of it. And like, I'm personally, and maybe I'm wrong for this, but I think we have too much in our culture of like, oh, let me hear about your feelings. Let me talk to you. It's like, no, shape up, bitch. Get your shit together. Get outside. Run around the block.
You're a great dad.
Well, you need some of that.
That's what you say to her.
Well, no, she's only 10 months. I'm waiting until next month. And then I'm going to really start hitting her. But you know what I mean?
Literally.
Go run around the block. No, I won't hit her. But I'll hit her with logic.
With harsh
logic.
Destroyed.
I'll make a YouTube video. I just eviscerated my 1-year-olds with facts and logic.
But one thing you point on, which I think is extremely useful, is a lot of times when you're at your lowest, you feel powerless. Mm-hmm. You do have the power to, if not make things good, great, or even normal, you have the power to make it better.
Yes.
And if you are making things better every day, you have momentum. And when your brain is screaming at you that you're powerless and hopeless, you go, here's the data. I've it's better than a week ago.
No,
so
you're
now
right.
you shut up.
And
I think
really,
that's great
and
advice.
really, I'm not even sure there is such thing as good and wonderful and great. And there's not such thing as catastrophe, and it's really just better or worse. That's all that actually exists. You know, the other things are just kind of things in your mind that you shoot toward, but you're never perfect. Nothing's ever, you know what I mean? And I also like I haven't had any issues with depression or anything like that for years, and a big part of that recently particularly is being married and having a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like it's not possible for me. Like I don't, it's not
possible not to be depressed.
Oh, yeah. It depresses other people. My wife is very depressed, severely. Doesn't get out of bed most days.
This is it?
She says hi, by the way.
My Lord.
But like it's just so you kind of if when you create these things, and then also for me,
I might as well be Irish. She's crying.
Well, I'll say when I was like really dealing with depression, my career was nowhere. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. I was single. You know what I mean? I was just in these things where it's like it's kind of, and now like I really like where my career is. I really love my wife. I love my daughter, and I'm not depressed at all. And I go, I think there's a connection there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I don't think, and I know it's not as easy as just having that tomorrow, but like you can start making steps toward that.
Yeah.
This was the Nick Sarwark portion of the. We
No,
just
no,
talked about depression.
I mean, the Nick Star Wars, I wouldn't even have to get into that because it's just not that interesting to me.
I agree.
I wanted. So, what about I had Big J on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about what the tragedy that happened at the stand.
Yeah.
Was he wasn't your manager as well, was he?
No, he wasn't my manager, but I knew him. I knew him well. Knew him for years.
How did you find out and walk me through what that was like? Because I mean, this is the kind of thing where it's just like, what the fuck?
Actually, Kim, who's next door right now, texted Lauren.
Oh wow! Not even,
and that's how I found out. And yeah, that's how I found out. Like right after it happened. I don't know who she heard from, but that was how I found out. And it was it was one of those things where I just didn't. Maybe that's just my reaction to these things, but I just didn't believe it.
Right.
I was like, she's got to have her info wrong.
Yeah,
and then I was just like, no, this isn't right. And then I didn't believe it. And then I called Jay and, talked to some other people and stuff. And, and even after everyone confirmed it, I was like, in my mind, I had my own defense mechanism maybe, but I was like, something's going to come out like where this isn't
April
actually
Fool's
what happened.
psych.
Yeah. I mean, but that really was, I swear, that was the first thing that my mind went to is that I go, they're pranking us, which makes no sense whatsoever.
It makes
but in the
more
moment,
sense. It makes more sense.
And it gave me some comfort in the moment, and
Like,
just
which
because you don't want to
more-
process
well,
it.
it's also what happens more frequently. Someone pranking you or like someone getting stabbed in their home for no reason.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to be the first.
Well, right. And then you start realizing this would be a really weird prank, even by my friends' standards. This would be a really sick joke to pull on somebody. But it also, maybe it does make more sense, and I also think it's a defense mechanism.
Of
Like,
course.
it's easier to deal with that. I mean, Lauren was really broken up about. We had just, the last time we had seen Dave was at Caroline's. I think you came to one of those shows where me, Lewis, and Jay were doing shows there. And Dave was there. He was hanging out in the green room with us, and we were just the whole time trading pictures of our daughter and his daughters. He was talking about sleep training and how much they love moving out into the house, and he was just all about his daughters. And it's just it's oof. That hit me really hard. It was really, really just absolutely tragic. It's nothing, that word gets used more often than it should, but this was a true tragedy.
So, Malice here, I want to tell you guys about a new sponsor, Vincero Watches. If you go to Vincero watches.com/malice and use code malice, you get 15% off. That's not bad. So what are they? These are exceptionally crafted watches for a fair price. They look fashionable. They look classy. They've got a lot to choose from. They've got 6 collections for men, 4 collections for women. It's a great way to show you're a grown-up at the office, on a date, at a party. It's a good conversation starter, and they look really nice. There's the smart sponsors send us their stuff so that we can look at it and speak from experience, and they did that. This watch looks great, and it looks like it costs money, and it doesn't. And in fact, if you go to vincerowatches.com/malice, you're going to get 15% off your entire order. How great's that? I did stand-up for like 6 months, like 20 years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, because...
I don't think I knew that.
You probably didn't. So the reason I did it is a friend of mine killed himself.
Huh.
And when we found out, we immediately started cracking jokes and making it a roast because it was so, and it remains so absurd to me that it was like, because a couple of things, I'll even tell you why, like it was premises for the stand-up. It was his last words. He told his dad, "Hey, we should play catch sometime," and then he jumped off the balcony. So it's just like, what? Number one. Number two is the suicide note had really bad handwriting. And I'm like, dude, like this, I mean, what is this, a recipe? Like, just like write it neatly. This is kind of the thing that matters. You're holding it up. It's like a Picasso. And it was like Sunday morning, and it's like, sleep in. Like, you're going to kill yourself. You don't need to wake up early. So like all these things were just so kind of crazy and nonsensical. And I did it for a bit, and I thought to myself, if I can make people laugh at suicide, then I'm talented. If I can make dick jokes, who cares?
Right.
And what fucked me up, besides the schedule, because you have to be out all hours, and I had a day job at like I think Goldman at the time, was the same joke that kills one night walks the room the next. And I'm like, I can't have a lifestyle where inputs have complete different outputs. Like my autism can't handle it.
Yeah.
But where I'm going to circuitously about this, and I asked Jay the same question, as soon as Jay heard he's a comedian, he started cracking the jokes. So did your comic brain do the same thing?
Yeah, pretty shortly after, I think. And that's like, it's again, I think it's just like a defense mechanism. It's just like how you deal with these things. It's like, well, it doesn't take away from the like severity of it or anything. It's just like, well, what else can you do? You're completely powerless. So you can at least like find the funny in all of these things. But yeah, I think pretty shortly after. I mean, I don't know. Like, I was real upset. Me and Lauren were both really upset when we found out. But I know the next night when I saw Lewis and Jay, and we it's us three. So of course there were jokes made about that. I don't know on that one. I don't think we ended up canceling a podcast. I believe that because we weren't ready to joke on it publicly for everybody. Like it was kind of like our jokes that night, and then by the next week, I think there were a few jokes that were made. And it's just right away, like you find like, I know, when I talked to Jay on the phone, actually now I'm remembering this, that night when I talked to Jay on the phone, so this isn't like, must have been hours after people found out, I talked to him on the phone and I was like, man, of all the owners of the stand, there's no one I would less like to see murdered than Dave Kimowitz. I was like, like I don't want to see Patrick murdered. I most days don't want to see Chris Italia murdered. Kimowitz, you definitely don't want to see murdered. That's like it. I was like, do they even know where the other guys lived? Or like, it's just stupid jokes like this. But it's just like kind of the only way you get through it.
My friend Eric, who I think was the webmaster for the LP, he passed away in August. It was just very sudden, like 46. I've known him my entire adult life, and like a lot of people were just like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I told him with the straight face, like, "I wish it was you." Like, if it was a choice, it would not. I mean, I don't want to make that choice, but it wouldn't be hard. Like gun to head, it's like, yeah, keep Eric. You can go.
Yeah, put your gun down. Just ask. I don't need the gun.
Is it a trick? What's the catch? There's this old Russian joke, one of the few funny Russian jokes, where the devil appears and sits down with this writer and says, "Okay. I will make you the most famous writer on earth, and all your books will be bestsellers, and everyone will be obsessed with you. But your entire family is going to die. I'm going to give you a day to think about it." And the writer's like, "It's the devil. There's got to be some catch here." So yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the kind of thing when it's that kind of tragedy. I talked about this with Soder also. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I mean, do you still think of him whenever you go there?
Yeah, and then like it'll I think of him, not so much there, and maybe part of it's because they just opened the new club and I didn't hang with him there that much.
Got it.
Like if I was at the old stand, I think I would think of him all the time. But no, I'll just like I was literally just like on the toilet the other day and saw like a Facebook post about it and it just like fucked up my hour.
Yeah.
Like little things. Sometimes they'll just pop into my head randomly. But what really fucked me up the most about it is just that, he's got 2 daughters, and I just had a daughter this year. I just thinking about that stuff just really, really fucked me up. Because it's just he's such a great dude, and
how
it's
do you
really
tell them?
how you
that's the
tell them,
thing.
and they're in an age where they don't even really understand it, or but I mean they do, but they don't. And the fact that they're just gonna miss out, like they don't get a dad now, and that's the thing that gets like really like makes you fucking furious. Is it's like the idea that some other person, some piece of shit, has the power to do that. Like these two little girls just don't get a dad now because of you, because you have to be a fucking savage.
The most fucked up thing I've ever seen on the internet, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
But this to me is the thing that fucked me up the most. Like it really shook me. There was a Facebook post, and it was 4 pictures, and it said it's a little boy, and it said, "Hey, look how brave Kelvin is. Let's give Kelvin our support." Whatever the kid's name is. And the 4 photos, this little boy and his dad was like 20, went to war and was killed. And there's a photo of him kissing the grave. Then there's one of like he's sleeping with the dad's picture, or like on a stuffed animal. And then there's one where he's like wearing the little military uniform. It's like, "Love you, Dad. I can't wait to see you soon." And they're like, "Isn't this great?" I'm like, this is the most fucked up thing I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And it makes me so angry. That it's like, oh yeah, go Kelvin. It's like, no. This is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Of all nightmares. And obviously I'm not a military family, and I'm sure they see things very differently, and maybe they have to. But just to be looking at this, and it's great that he's putting on a brave face, but it really did a number on me.
Well, I mean, this is like that stuff to me gets right to the core.
And he was a cute kid. It wasn't like he was a fatty. You
Yeah.
know? Then I'd be like, I don't care.
Well, then you're like, well, who's going to support this fatty?
Yeah.
Well, even if there is some fat kid who lost his dad, but even those people were like, yeah, we can't use this guy. This isn't going to get any sympathy.
There were
Like,
20
yeah,
kids.
I don't know.
And this is the only one that made people care.
Listen, there's a lot of military people who have died. We got kids to choose from.
Why are you, the boss? Can you come in here for a second? Yeah, what is it, Mr. Jones? Why are you sending me photos of an Irish kid? No one is going to have sympathy for this freak.
She goes, Johnson, when I told you I needed pictures of a kid with a dead military father, did I have to tell you no Irish? Is that not always implied? Get the fuck out of my office. But dude, this is like the true, and I know I love this in your book, in the New Right, where you talk about the cathedral and the religion of the left. And I've been saying for years that I just think in general statism is religion. And of course the leftists are the one who believe in the state the most, so it's really not surprising to me that they formed their own, religion. But I kind of look at it almost like, like Protestants and Catholics and like different, brands. Like the Republicans are their own religion, and all of them have their own like gods, and the left, the radical egalitarian left, is like spun out to be the craziest religion at the moment. Like they're the ones, but at any moment, like 2003, the Republicans were the craziest religion out there. But just the religion of the state in general, and this was something that was so really stuck out to me, was when Hillary Clinton had that the Khan family, I believe they were, at the DNC. And she had this family at the Democratic National Convention who lost their child in the war in Iraq, come out and lecture Donald Trump about how a Muslim ban is unconstitutional and all of this. And like it never dawned on her that this kid was lost in a war that she voted for and championed, and says she regretted, that we all acknowledge we shouldn't have fought now. Like, you got their kid killed, and even they're up there. They believe in this religion too. So they're just like, well, the high priest sacrificed my kid, but we blame this other person. You're like, are you guys out of your fucking mind? Does no one just sit back? And then it was like, I called it for it was like 3 days before Trump finally had the right response. And I was like screaming it on my podcast every day. I was like, Trump, it's right there for you. And he finally went, I never would, your kid would be alive if I was in charge. And like, then it was like, okay, there you go. You had it. But like,
and those people have vanished.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're not useful.
Purpose.
They're not useful anymore.
They're gone.
Well, that really is, and this is the stuff that it's so. If you can have like a little bit of an attention span, like you don't even have to go back 10 years. It's just a few years ago. But everything like this, they all just kind of go away.
Yeah.
No one cares anymore. You've served your purpose. You were a tool, and now you're gone. No one cares about that family. No one gives a shit. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, next. Hey, you remember there were like the 12 women who Donald Trump sexually assaulted?
Yeah.
All right, didn't stick. All right, see you later.
You're fascinating to talk to. Remember her?
Yeah.
That was the
yeah.
best one.
Oh my God.
The one like.
Whoa, was she weird?
The one like I got from Trump Jr. was when I said like CNN's new anchor to replace Matt Lauer, and I had a picture of her, and he's like, "Oh, like." I'm like, "Oh, like from Jr." I'm so excited. Dave, we are out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Oh, this is always tough. I would say my favorite thing, since I enjoyed this interview so much, is that you were willing to move the time later in the day so we didn't have to miss the interview.
You are welcome.